the angel said money has the same potential. So it can show up in a linear fashion for someone who wants a linear relationship with it, as in must save money, can't have fun in life, and it will show up that way. Or if you want a quantum relationship with it, it's going to go like, hey, I want to hang out with you. You want to go do something fun? You want to go to Iceland? Great, let's go. Let me pour some into your reality and let's do it.
All right, welcome to the New Age Human Podcast. I'm your host, John Astasio. Today's part 2 of our 2-part series with our friend Seph Dietlin, who can talk with angels. And on top of that, we're going to continue the conversation with quantum economy, a different perspective on time, quantum thinking, and much more rabbit holes. So strap up, tighten your seatbelt, get ready for the ride. It's going to be wild. Now, if you want to continue to support the show, feel free to go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. That will help out a lot. And you can go to the newhagehuman.com website if you want to connect. With that said, let's get to the show.
And then what I mean by that investment, again, these courses that I've taken, I'm only on like the second of 11 modules and haven't even begun to implement what's in the container of the course. But by literally investing in myself, it's already started to return.
What that actually, I wanted to interject because I wanted to bring that home and some real-time experiences that reminds me of, even though it's more mechanical, I think it's along the same lines where the excitement or the anticipation brings upon the experience before the experience happens, like a future ripple in the time fabric of time space. The ripple effect in the future has hit you already, right? Where if you're a coffee addict, the simple roasting of the coffee and the smell and the anticipation of that, you're excited, you have energy, you haven't even taken a sip yet, or you have to go to the bathroom, but you can wait. But the second you're like, you know what, I'm near the bathroom now, all of a sudden your body's like, all right, we're out now. Like let's go, right? And it's the anticipation, and there's mechanical means to that or biological means. And what I feel is you're speaking to the more spiritual, more energetic side of that, where you put an investment, you allocated energy and anticipation into a module of sorts to invest into yourself, to take it to your business to the next level. And the anticipation on top of already allocating the energy to that construct has created a gap of potential to be filled in with what it's going to create, right? And I think that's pretty cool.
It is, and it's only one of many examples, because when I started channeling the information about the quantum economy, the channeling is, so far I have about 90 paradigm flips that we're meant to make to integrate this new level of creativity. Ultimately, what it boils down to is that because we're a spark of the divine, we create in the same way. And we have been in an experience where we create through the antithesis of who we are. So as this limited human being that has a bank account and credit cards versus being the divine that says, now today I'll create the zebra, but I don't even have to call up Chase Manhattan Bank to borrow money to do it, because I'm going to do it through the ultimate form of creativity. Now, I'm not saying or promising that we can manifest the luxury car of our dreams in the driveway by thinking about it right now. I am saying we can and we will, only because of that experience and because everything in the world of form is part of an illusion. We're getting back to the place where we are slowly remembering and integrating how we create as a spark of the divine, which is in a quantum sense. It's in a sense of unlimited possibilities. It's in a sense where there is no limitation whatsoever based on that. And we're slipping into that, and we're seeing that. So for now, we're going to be imposing that onto the monetary system. But again, this is not money. This is not a conversation about money. But one of the things that the angels said is that with the consciousness of money, think about it this way. Right now, you can go have a linear conversation with people who are, I call them data exchanges. Hey, how's it going? Oh, great. I just got back from Alaska. Oh, awesome. I just got back from Hawaii. Oh, that's awesome. Did you have a good time? Yeah, I had a great, blah. It's just data exchange, right? Oh my God, I found this great new recipe for macaroni salad or whatever.
Very surface.
And then very mundane and everything. But then we have these expansive conversations with people. So you may have a day where you go have coffee with the one friend and you have to talk about how, the Angels or the Dodgers or the Jets or the Mets are doing. And then the next thing you know, you go have a conversation with someone and are talking about quantum mechanics and manifesting. Well, in much the same way that you have a versatile ability to show up as either quantum or linear to two different people, the angel said money has the same potential. So it can show up in a linear fashion for someone who wants a linear relationship with it, as in must save money, can't have fun in life, and it will show up that way. Or if you want a quantum relationship with it, it's going to go like, hey, I want to hang out with you. You want to go do something fun? You want to go to Iceland? Great, let's go. Let me pour some into your reality and let's do it. And it's kind of like a lover and a love and energy. And
so money being your friend instead of your employee.
Or lover.
Interesting having a love relation. Marry your money. Have love with your money.
Well, back to the coffee situation. One of the best things that we can do in the beginning of the day is to reset ourselves after waking up, because we have to integrate ourselves back into this world and go, oh my gosh, I'm here again.
Especially after some crazy dreams that I've had.
Crazy dreams, realizing that certain things are certain ways. We already know that there are certain timelines that we're ready to be in, and this one is a ladder to it, but it's not it. And we're very aware of it when we wake up and we're like, oh man, this one again. It's better than the other one, but we definitely can see some more robust ones that are actually more in alignment with who we truly are, because we've already discovered who we truly are. But say, for example, we do our gratitude list or our meditation, or we brew that cup of coffee, and just doing that makes us melt into the present moment. Well, the present moment is a really key ingredient in integrating into the quantum economy. Because one of the things that Metatron shared with me in a conversation I had with him is that because linear time is a false construct, then when we evolve, we already know that we have a different relationship with time based on our current level of evolvement. And we know that each time we upgrade, or in this case, reboot reality, time seems to move faster, and sometimes it seems to stand still if we need to get something accomplished. We have a new way of understanding or relating to time because it's a false construct. And in that sense, the real trick to manifestation and being in the quantum economy is literally understanding that you can't have one moment where you're in lack and one moment where you're in prosperity, because there aren't two separate moments. There's only one.
And those are conflicting.
Right. So they're only in the mind and in the illusion. So by entering the timeless state, you can only be in what I call the enchanted state, which is where you can sit there with that cup of coffee and all of a sudden feel the expansion take place around you and be like, I feel good, but it's not because of external circumstances. It's because I connected with who I really am. And once I do that, I'm in a timeless state. Now, incidentally, and as a relationship to this conversation, when I had this conversation with Metatron about the false construct of time, and keep in mind, I didn't ask him about it. He came in and started going on and on and on about it. And by the end of the conversation, I realized why and how valuable it was. But one of the other things he said is that all of the other false constructs of this earth are that they stand upon the foundation of the false construct of time. And once there is no more false construct of time, these constructs will be gone. And that's a conversation I had with him a year ago, which then explains the context for what we have for timeline shifts or basically rebooting reality. It makes perfect sense. But he said to me that every false construct who stands on the foundation of the false construct of time, they do everything that they can to keep humanity in the false construct of time. So if you've noticed, religions created calendars. The banks make you pay your loans back every 30 days, right? Don't forget September 11th and December 7th, and don't forget April 15th, right? Everything that these false constructs do is they actually try to put us back into the false construct of time, because without the false construct of time, they're rendered powerless and ineffective, which is where we go into creating without a false system.
Actually, could you briefly highlight who is Metatron? I think people are, I'm just getting the vibe that some people might not know offhand who you're referring to. So a little bit of a background outside of the Transformers version.
Oh, that's a good one. So there are archangels, but first of all, I have to say that there is only energy and there is only a field of oneness. And what we call the divine creator or God, we are it, or let's say a spark of it, and so are the angels. Well, while we're in a world where we have a relationship with form and separateness and unity at the same time, we have that same relationship with the angels. And when I converse with the angels, it's a field of oneness. And where they become, let's say, separate or have an identity, it's because of the area of expertise, let's say, they have. So Raphael is about healing, for example. Gabriel is about communication, but they're still part of the same field of oneness. Metatron is the archangel that oversees the ascension.
Interesting.
Yeah. And interesting enough, sometimes he shows up in a spacecraft when I have conversations with him. And when we have these relationships with angelic beings, they can also be simultaneously embodied, or at least momentarily simultaneously embodied, in a more advanced race that has space travel. So it's not necessarily maybe speaking to an extra dimensional, but in the way that I've been able to understand it is that the angels can take forms that they would need to take in order for us to be able to relate to it and then receive the information, which is ultimately from us. So Metatron, in the archangel sense, is an archetype for the angel that's overseeing Earth's global transformation at this time.
Cool. Thank you for clarifying that part. And the whole concept and understanding of time, I like the perspective or the description you had when you shared what Metatron was saying around and makes perfect sense. Everything has a foundation, and a lot of the linear thinking is founded on the actual linear thought, right? That there's a
Mm-hmm.
past, there's a present, and then there's a future, and that is a third density way of understanding things. And as we move into, now I'm using the language of density, right, to help with the understanding of these different levels of existence that you're talking about, right? I see it
Mm-hmm.
as going from third to fourth. And as you go into different densities, that's just a different type of vibration that plane of existence that you're sitting on. As you transfer into these different planes, yeah, they sit on different quote unquote foundations. And when the rug is
Mm-hmm.
pulled from underneath you, the linear thought rug, yeah, things are going to just collapse. And I think
Mm-hmm.
for some that are holding on to the rug, thinking of like pulling the rug out from under a table of dishes and plates, and if you're stuck to that rug, you're going to hit the ground
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully not shatter, versus someone who's like, oh yeah, we're ready to go, we're just flowing with it, and they sit on the table, which is the table of fourth density, so to speak. That's my like
Mm-hmm.
analogy of
Yeah.
how I'm seeing it. So it's like, I'm telling anybody who's listening, as usual, take things with a grain of salt if you're having a hard time digesting, but it's always really good to have an open mind to other
Mm-hmm.
concepts, because it's going to help you. Like what I do is, if I see something that's like, or if I hear something that's way beyond what I'm ready for, I say, okay, let me put that in my pocket for later. It's going to come up, I know, in the future, because I'm curious and I'm discovering. And you're going to have your own pieces that are going to be put together, whether it be a synchronistic experience, whether it be another person that says it in a different way with different words, you know?
Well, yes. Couple things. First of all, we can very easily see that the matrix of the convoluted false constructs and the lower density that wants to have control or manipulate the planet, we can see it in a disintegration mode. And that is actually a byproduct of these timeline shifts. Now, humanity hasn't even pointed a weapon toward those false constructs, and they are disintegrating as we're in observance of it. So each time humanity evolves and ascends up to another level, that construct continues to disintegrate. And 10 years ago, I had asked the angels, how on earth is humanity going to ascend beyond this layer of suppression, I'll refer to it as? And they said, the angels said, consciousness. Consciousness is what will do it. And now we're watching that in action, because we are watching these false constructs disintegrating and becoming irrelevant and becoming more and more relevant. So each time we collectively jump into a new variation of reality, its power and its power over us is actually diminishing, and we're seeing it diminish. And there's been all kinds of conversations about what are we going to do about this? Well, there is no doing about this except for expanding and allowing ourselves to be in the highest vibrational state, because that frequency is the vehicle that moves us into these higher dimensional realities or these reboots. Okay. And so that's where our focus is on conscious development, is because as we do this, what the angel said is that one day we're going to wake up. There will be no more power lines. There will be no more pollution. There will be no more of these false constructs. They simply will not exist anymore. And they're just going to disappear as a result of having been rebooted into one that already exists, where none of this stuff actually exists at all.
I always I often have thoughts of what the streets and the world would look like without power lines, because those are an eyesore. And just in my deep dives into innovative technology, Tesla and all that, we never needed them. So it's very interesting to see and work to visualize a world without them. It's very exciting too, and full
Right.
of
Well,
abundance.
yeah, right. Well, besides being an eyesore, they look like bondage on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a certain way, when you see them, they obstruct nature. You see them running through some of the most beautiful natural scenery, and they obstruct nature, but it also looks like bondage. They look like lines or ropes that they're built that way. And in a way, it is a form of bondage because energy is free. There is a free form of it. The angels had mentioned to me back in the early days of speaking to them that when humanity gets to a level where there is no longer a segment of humanity that is interested in owning everything and then selling it to the rest, that we will have access to a form of energy that doesn't need power lines. And it is something that doesn't exist here. Even though we have suppressed technology, it's not referring to that. It's referring to something else, which is renewable, and the power lines will be taken down. But they won't be taken down as much as they'll just disappear.
Very interesting.
But they do look like a form of bondage, especially to a awake or aware person who is very conscious. The power lines are a great big eyesore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like how we went into a lot. We went pretty deep into quantum economy, and I appreciate you for that with sharing all the different examples. I'm getting the feeling that there's some questions out there around how can maybe 3 tips on someone being able to take the first steps on having that experience of working with that quantum economy. And I know this is going to tie into something that you're working on as well.
Good. Well, first of all, we're going to call it integrating, right? And so when I channeled these like 80 or 90 points, paradigms, I can easily remember a bunch of them. And so the whole idea for the audience is how can you integrate this and begin to notice an expansion in your ability to be able to live in a bit more of an infinite fashion like your true design. And one of them is to understand that this is energetic. So we're already at a point where we don't believe what we read, but yet we resonate with what comes from within, which wildly contradicts it and has quote unquote no basis in authenticity, right? So everything's debated in the 3D world because it's on paper, it's in form, and we already know, those of us that are aware, we watch a conversation, we're like, I'm not going to get involved in that because that's a mind conversation, okay? And we know that we can't go in there and battle the mind with the mind because it's always going to be a battle. As we know, it's happening in the Middle East as we speak. It's a battle of the minds. It's a battle of the left brain. It's a battle of the humans that are not connected to their heart. But we get to decipher information that comes through insight and comes through these discussions. We resonate it, and then it calibrates us. So we don't learn this like we learn algebra. We actually calibrate this by discovering it through insight, having these discussions. Then once it hits off of our resonance of, oh, that is true, then what happens is it expands within us and becomes real. So we integrate it through calibration. So that's the first thing. We're not going to learn this, and there's not going to be like 5 steps, quote unquote, to make it happen because that's linear. But what we're going to want to know is paradigms that we're going to want to integrate through our awareness. Because the angels say that the more that we shift the way we see things, the more the things we see will change. That is literally our ability to create reality. So we're already seeing it. So, for example, if we have a relationship or friendship with someone and we see them as, maybe we see them as selfish or something like that, and then they act that way towards us, and then they invite us to their family. We see how their family dynamic works, and then we see why they're a little more protective of what they have. And we shift through compassion. We go into the heart space. We see them differently. The next thing you know, without them knowing that we see them differently, they start behaving differently. So the world is already doing that to us. The more we see our life as a string of misfortunes, the more misfortunes we're going to have. Because if we see it that way and it's in our awareness, reality can only behave the way that we observe it. The observance is the key to conscious creativity. How do we observe this? So that means that part of this, in addition to understanding that this is a calibration, understanding that we're actually able to trust what we know from within and through insight, that's not written on paper, it's not circulating around the mainstream. The University of Arizona is not studying it, okay, with any solid examples. We're actually experiencing it firsthand, and it's happening on a quantum basis. So that experience creates the way that we shift the way we see things, and then it expands into more of that. Another thing I'm supposed to mention is that if you've always felt that abundance has been difficult for you, one of the things that you can shift into getting into or integrating your quantum relationship with abundance and economy is understanding you came to this world with the codes, the default codes for the new earth. So if you've had difficulty with money, or you feel free or expansive with it, more expansive than your means, all that means is that you're a quantum creator and you came here that way. So when we get into these levels where this can become more available, you're going to be more at home. So visiting that piece of us that is already coded to create in the new reality, that those signals got jammed in the old one, or it didn't make sense. So you're like, huh? I remember going, why does humanity let this happen, right? I remember when we pulled into a gas station when I was a kid, and it then, just to tell you my age, it was 67 cents a gallon for gasoline.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh,
And now in LA, put a 7 before that, and that's the price of gas. But anyway, I pulled in there and I remember asking my mom, why do we pay for gas when it comes from the earth? Like, who says that it belongs to those people, right? But when we visit those kind of things, when we were considered the weird one, because we saw the world in a perspective that rose above the false constructs of the matrix, we know that we're programmed or coded for the new earth economy. Present moment awareness is very key. Power of positive expectancy is key. And go out and have expansive conversations with everyone that you can, because even having expansive conversations shifts us onto a new timeline, and we can actually feel it occur. We have these expansive conversations and we can literally feel ourselves being elevated into a new dimension or a new frequency. And we don't come back down. Every time we go into a new level, you can't unknow what you know. Something inside of you is expanded and integrated. So these are just a few of the ways that we can allow that to become part of our experience. This isn't the old masculine do, right? This isn't that. And one of the things I realized, I've been this person in this reality because of being so expansive. I'm one of those people that have overworked. Always. I can start at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then it's midnight. And then I can wonder why I can't go to sleep, because I want to stay in that, productivity. But I'm learning that that is not actually more productive. In the New Earth economy, what happens is that we're going to be working less. So if you find that the inflow of actual business has been diminished, so in other words, whatever it is, clients or customers or orders or whatever it is that you do, you notice that there's a decline in that, but somehow or another, your financial well-being is stabilized or expanding in that backdrop. Unknowingly, you've already stepped into and begun to integrate the New Earth economy paradigm, the quantum economy paradigm. I know people who are like, I don't know why everything is so stable. So there's no point in complaining about the price of gas or anything like that, because no matter what happens in a linear sense, you're always going to have well-being. And that's one of the ways to overtake the system and actually force it to become quantum, which is one of the things that the angels said we're doing through this, is that we're actually overtaking the system through consciousness, and we're going to actually cause it to become quantum, which means that it will be more infinite, and the manipulation effect that's on, for example, money, will get blown off.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and we're already seeing this as people can see through it or whatever, right?
As people are quote unquote waking up and becoming more aware and becoming more conscious, just like as you just simply just the example of growing up, you're like, I thought I was gonna always be into remote control cars and the things I was into as a kid. I'm like, when I get older, I'm just gonna have a really cool remote control car. Like it was just, I didn't see how the world was going to change. And as you get older and as you become more aware, you have these experiences, and now these higher vibe conversations and questioning things. Yeah, you're going to start questioning more, and people are questioning the questions that are questioning. And to the point where you're like, I can see right through. I can see right through that. And that is what I see you saying, as in, yes, people are evolving. They're having higher vibe conversations, and they're questioning more things, and they're making decisions based off of that. So, and therefore the rug is being pulled, the veil is thinning, and so forth. That's awesome. I do. Do you have a few more things to share? Because I know that I want to also give you a chance to share what projects you're working on, and I think you have a course as well.
I do believe that innately we know that we're designed for something that's better. And our traveling or crossing that bridge to something that resembles our actual design isn't because we got stuck somewhere outside Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny would say. It's because we wanted to make a journey into that contrast. We got what we were supposed to get out of that, and we're making the journey back. So remembering who we are and remembering that we are designed for something that is far more expansive is what calls it forth. And for those of us who don't watch the news, there's a reason, because when we step into this realm, we're creating the new earth that's going to replace the old one, instead of feeding it energy by watching the news. The news does nothing to solve problems. That was another thing that I saw through when I was a kid, is like, why do we sit and watch the news? Nothing gets solved from just watching and being fed this stuff. And in fact, it's toxic for the mind. And people know about an event in the world, but then they're told they can't do anything about it. And maybe that's the point. Whether it's by design or by accident, it has a disempowering effect. So why don't we shut it off and start actually having civil conversations with each other and figuring out the solutions without the constructs in the way that seem to offer solutions that just don't work and have a track record of not working, right? At what point are we going to fire them, right? Because everything everything that they purport to do, they don't do, and they don't do it well. But we already know that we're designed for something so much more in communion with that created us. And we know that innately, and we're traveling toward it, and we're creating it through expansion. And we're doing that, and it's exciting now. And this is where we get to have fun conversations with each other about this. And as we discover that and expand, we're making it real.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're like sharing stories of these amazing things, and it becomes more real, and then your reality becomes more open to it, and you start seeing it yourself. Yeah. And having conversations. I love having conversations with you. I know that on the podcast we've spoken, maybe, I think you've been on, this is your second time, but I feel like for the audience, we talk often. And so the conversations we have are very, very involved, and they go deep. So I'm glad that you're on today, so that we can go deep, so everybody else can see the conversation that we're having, and help other people expand their mind while you're driving to work, or you're driving to your next stop, or you're cleaning your house and doing your thing. In the back of your head, you might miss a couple words, but your subconscious is like, just.
Very activated. And that's a very interesting demonstration of activating conversation. It sounds like a kitty cat drinking the water. Yes, but
yeah. Well, cats are always going to win the day. They're going to win the thought space in the mind. So yeah, let's. I want to give you a chance. Like, what are you working on? I know there's a lot of things you're excited about.
Yes, thank you. So right now, I do quite a few channeled events. So anyone likes this conversation, I have lots of them, and they're all different. And on my website, which is talktomyangels.com, there's a place where you can input your name and email, so that anytime an event is available, that you'll get to know about it and participate in it. And most of these are virtual, and these are going to start to come to life in person in places too, but you'll get to be in the know. I also teach courses about developing your connection or communion with the angels, so that you can basically create or be tapped into the quantum field. So I teach people how to communicate with the angels, how to access their own Akashic records. And also I created a deck of tarot cards, and I teach a tarot class as well. So those get released from time to time, and that's in there. So I bring this aspect of the angels into your readings and your hypnotherapy sessions, and I work with the angels to do that. And I also created a community online, which does not have a paywall, and it is called the Quantum Field of Miracles, because I know that when we go in there and have expansive conversations, that we're creating miracles, just literally because of being in that expansive state. And my website is talktomyangels.com.
Awesome. There's a lot in there, so I hope everybody digested it all. Seph, thank you for coming onto the show. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.